Hey people, it is Friday, March the 15th. The time is 4:07 in the afternoon. It's currently a fairly mild 11 degrees Celsius. And I'm on the east side of downtown here on Carlton Street. Just about to enter Allen Gardens. So I'm going to take a walk through the park here on the east side. It has not had the best of reputations in the city over the years. It's currently home to a encampment which has fluctuated in size. It's currently rather small, as we'll see as I walk through the park, but at times it has had as many as 75 tents or so. Now it's down to, I think, less than 10. But I thought the theme of this walk would be to walk along some of the more so-called sketchy streets on the east side of downtown, here in the Garden District and neighboring Moss Park, including the infamous George Street. There's a block of George between Gerrard and Dundas that is often regarded as the worst block in the entire city. Just walking past a dog park with some very excitable dogs. And you can see how close we are to the heart of the financial district and the CN Tower off to the southwest. And the beautiful Allen Gardens Conservatory here. It's a large botanical garden, currently getting some renovation work done. But it is free of charge. So this park is definitely worth coming to for various reasons, and it is a fairly attractive and sizable park. Perfectly located in a busy and dense neighborhood here on the east side of downtown. So I thought after George Street, I would take a walk along Dundas and walk through Dundas and Sherborne, which is probably the most infamous intersection in the city, along with Queen and Sherborne, which we'll also be walking through. And then I'll continue on through a bit of the Moss Park neighborhood, and then I'll make my way up to Regent Park, and we'll end the video somewhere around the Freshco grocery store in Regent Park, since I do have to go in and pick up a few things. So you can see the number of tents has certainly gone down. Maybe a dozen or so, including a couple of teepees here. To be perfectly honest, I've never felt unsafe walking through Allen Gardens. I live a stone's throw away from the park. I've walked through it countless times, day and night, including the early hours of the morning. And I've never had any trouble, other than maybe the odd comment from someone as they walk past. But there have been a number of high-profile incidents that did take place in the park where people were very seriously injured, or even worse in some cases. But those are not the norm, and certainly are not frequent. And this area is rapidly gentrifying with new towers popping up, especially around Dundas and Jarvis and Dundas and Church. They haven't made their way to Dundas and Sherborne yet, though. We'll see. We'll see if that happens. There are a couple of proposals, though, for new towers around the Dundas and Sherborne intersection. And hopefully it doesn't rain. The sky has looked pretty threatening for the last half hour or so. So here's Gerrard Street. And George Street begins right here. Try to don't get run down by a cyclist. So this block here is home to Seton House, which is the largest men's shelter in the city. It's been here for decades. I think it houses something up to like 700 to 900 men. I'm not sure exactly of the number. It's in the high hundreds in any case. And the street is a mix of old co-op housing, affordable apartments, and some homes slated for demolition and redevelopment. And Seton House itself is also slated to be redeveloped with a new facility, updating it, increasing it in size. Because I think this one is past its prime. So some of these fellows don't take too kindly to being recorded, so I'm just going to hold my camera down low as we walk past. We got some music also. I'll try to talk over the music. I'll just do my best here to combat the potential copyright claim here as we walk past this fellow. He's having his own personal party here on the side of the street. Good times all around here on George Street. Party on, dude, party on. And here's some of the houses that are all fenced off and awaiting demolition here. I think these ones will be part of the Seton House redevelopment, which, as I mentioned, will be quite a bit bigger than the current facility. They were once very charming homes, you can tell, though. A lot of character. And no shortage of litter here on the block either. Here's more co-op housing. And these homes are also slated for demolition. Definitely looking worse for wear. Even the sidewalks are a bit dicey here. Lots of uneven sections to trip over. This is probably the closest thing we have to a sort of American-style slum-looking inner-city street here. Looks like something out of Philadelphia. Not to disparage Philadelphia, it's a great city, but it does have some very rough-looking neighborhoods. Jenny Green Co-op. We got a friendly little guy here. standing guard. Good job. These houses are a bit worse for wear. They seem to be still occupied though. Some old row houses. I thought they were separate semi-detached homes, but they actually seem to have 4 units each and they're attached. And the landmark here at George and Dundas, Fillmore's Hotel. We'll get a look at the famous marquee here at the corner of Dundas and George. And you can see the new condos have encroached here right to the corner of Dundas and George. This is a fairly new development. So George Street continues. The block south of Dundas, though, is really perfectly fine. It's just a fairly typical east side residential street. Here we have Fillmore's. You can probably guess what sort of establishment this is. It's been here for many decades. And at night, it's all lit up in neon. And some people live in the units above. And the entire building is slated to be redeveloped with a new tower. So I think the strip club will be closing, but the building will be preserved as part of that new development. I think that will be a 49-story tower, last I heard. In keeping with many of the other recent builds in the area, which tend to be in the 40 to 50-story range. And I've always been a fan of this very unique looking row here. Hopefully that won't fall to the wrecker's ball one day, or it will at least be incorporated into a new development if one does come along. Right next door, there is a proposal for a building, though. "49 stories here as well, which will include this old building and the former Papa John's here on the corner. They just recently relocated just a bit west along Dundas, because I guess development is imminent and these buildings will be coming down. And George's Pizza and Panzerato, that actually has good reviews, and I've tried it. I live very close by, as I mentioned, and it's definitely pretty decent pizza at an affordable price. I think one guy, George, just runs the whole show by himself. He sort of opens and closes depending on whether or not he feels like going in that day, for how long. I haven't been to this place, though. It just opened in the last 6 months or so. It replaced another place that didn't last very long on that corner, so hopefully this is doing better. I do see people in there more often than the previous establishment, so maybe it is doing better. Daisy Mart. This is actually the closest convenience store to where I live, but I never go there. I think I've been there once or twice in the entire 13 plus years I've lived in the neighborhood, just literally around the corner. And we're approaching Dundas and Sherborne. the worst intersection in the city, according to many. I might have to lower my camera also at times here. I have been yelled at on more than one occasion by unhappy characters who frequent the area, objecting to being caught on camera. True Love Cafe, nothing is going on in there. That's been closed for quite some time. And I doubt any of these phones are functional. Well, the intersection is a bit on the quiet side right now. There's the True Love Cafe. There's always a large group of people gathered in front of this church on the corner here. They do some outreach, I believe. And it's a community center as well. And this plaza has had a rough time of it. Sam's Food Store. That store has been the location of some unpleasant incidents. Some shootings, stabbings, all sorts of things. A guy started following me after yelling something at me there. He eventually stopped and turned around. And this is the site of a other new proposal for a development. A new tower, I believe, is slated here, which will be affordable housing. This has been a vacant lot for the longest time. And that old home, I think, is part of that development. There are some cameras erected on that old house there near the corner, which would show all the shenanigans taking place in front of it on a YouTube channel. The address of the house is the name of the YouTube channel. I'll try to put that in the video. The address is escaping me currently. So we're heading south on Sherborne. These buildings were recently refurbished, but they're known to be very troubled buildings. I don't think this is occupied right now. Shooter Street. So this is Moss Park over here, the actual park. We'll be entering the neighborhood of Moss Park momentarily. We're still in the Garden District. And those apartment buildings over there are the Moss Park apartments. That's a nice contrast here with the old row houses and towering new residential buildings behind. This Dollarama here is also rather infamous. I used to come here fairly often, but once they opened the Dollarama at Yonge and Dundas, I stopped coming to this one, and you could probably figure out why. I never ran into any trouble or issues when I would come here, but it was always a bit dodgy, even inside the store. They'd have multiple security guards keeping an eye on things. I'm going to lower the camera again. And we got more Muzak also. I don't know if I can drown that out or not. So we got a Salvation Army store, or a Salvation Army drop-in center, I should say, here. And the intersection of Queen and Sherborne is just right up ahead. This whole area is in for some big changes in the near future, though, because a new subway station is being constructed here as part of the Ontario line, and they've already begun work on a section of Moss Park over here. And the Followers Mission. So I think it's a sure thing once the subway line opens, and this is the site of a busy subway station, this whole area will probably start transforming with new developments and densification and gentrification and every other and every other ifrication that you can think of. So here we are, Queen and Sherborne. So once you go south of Queen along Sherborne, it rapidly improves, and it just seems like a fairly typical downtown street. It's just this block between Dundas and Queen where sketchiness abounds. And if you Google Queen and Sherborne or Dundas and Sherborne, you'll probably find multiple news articles and police reports detailing various crimes which have occurred at both intersections. Some very major crimes resulting in loss of life. An awesome view of the rapidly transforming skyline here in this part of downtown, though. Most of those towers didn't exist 10 years ago. The vast majority of them actually didn't exist 10 years ago. Even 5 years ago, at least half of them didn't exist. And the infamous Moss Park discount store, another place I've never been inside. I think the last incident to take place here, which made the news, was just a couple of weeks ago or so. Most of the time they involve people who are known to one another, not usually random in nature, although that has happened. In front of Fillmore, as I recall, there was a shooting that was random. Unfortunately, that person did not survive. I actually heard the gunshots from my apartment since I live so close to there. And I went out to investigate after a few minutes when police were on the scene. And I did record that entire investigation and turned it into a video. And there's also a famous landmark here in the neighborhood, Kim's Convenience. That's the very same store from the TV show. It wasn't always called Kim's Convenience, though. It had a different name prior to the TV show, and then they erected that sign to do some on-location shots of the store, and then the owner of the store decided to just leave the sign up instead of putting their old sign back. And I think that was a good call. This store now is a bit of an attraction for fans of that show. People venture here to the east side of downtown just to take a look at Kim's Convenience. And here are the Moss Park apartments from the Queen Street side. I think these were developed in the 1960s. And these buildings have had not the best reputation either over the last several decades. But changes are coming. Another new development is underway right here. A couple of towers are on the rise, bringing new residents to the area. Someone's hacking up a lung across the street. These buildings are quite reminiscent of projects in New York City, just with their design. The 1871 Berkeley Church. Just a bit further to the east is Corktown, one of the oldest and most historic parts of the city. All right, let's cross here. And the further east you go, the street seems to get better and better. Once you go east of Sherborne. It's a bit quiet and sleepy compared to Queen Street West. But it otherwise seems perfectly fine in my opinion. Especially once you get into Corktown. And then once you go over the Don River out of downtown, it's a bustling and lively neighborhood along Queen Street East. Find neighborhoods such as Riverside and Leslieville, and further east the beaches. And this was a Shoppers Drug Mart, closed down, and you guessed it, a new development will replace that building, the new residential tower. So we're heading north on Parliament Street. A walk. It's a walk around the neighborhood.
Walk through Moss Park?
Yeah. Yeah. Moss Park.
Going on YouTube?
George Street, Ellen Gardens. Yeah, it's going on YouTube, yeah.
What's the channel?
The Ken Continuum.
Ken Continuum. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I just do walks all around Toronto.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
this area is not the greatest.
No, that's kind of the subject of this video, actually.
There was a double homicide at Dundas and Parliament.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
daylight
we're gonna walk right by there, actually. Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, thanks.
I watch shit like that all the time, like going through the hoods or something.
Oh yeah?
On YouTube,
Well,
so.
I have quite a few videos. I have quite a few videos like that. So.
I'll check you out.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Have a good one.
Thanks. There's a friendly young dude. Potential new subscriber. All right, crossing Shooter. So that's Regent Park right over there, all those residential towers. A former, very rough neighborhood, which has been almost completely redeveloped. And now is not really regarded as a rough neighborhood for the most part, although, as that young dude I just talked to mentioned, some incidents still do take place in Regent Park every now and again. It's a recent incident where 2 people were shot on the street outside in the middle of the day. And unfortunately, neither of them survived. I believe they have apprehended and arrested the perpetrator, though. Looks like a new building is on the rise here. I think this will be a mid-rise residential building. And this area might look rough, but in my opinion, it's just all look. It's not really rough in the same way as Dundas and Sherborne, or Queen and Sherborne. It's just a little business district here along Parliament Street with many Islamic businesses. I think there's a Somali community who frequents this area. Various restaurants and shops. And it looks like that person was fixing. I just turned around, I was like, what is going on over there? I wasn't sure if it was a person or an animal, or turns out it was indeed a person. All right, let's cross here before the light changes. So we're at Dundas and Parliament. And it was just a block to the east where that recent incident took place I just mentioned earlier. And that was the first time in over a year that Regent Park had some gun violence. The neighborhood was doing so well. And hopefully it'll be a very long time before another such incident occurs in the neighborhood. But here's the Freshco store. So I'm going to wrap things up here and head inside. I hope you enjoyed the walk around what is considered the sketchy side of downtown Toronto, the east side, specifically through Allen Gardens, George Street, Dundas and Sherborne, Queen and Sherborne, and up through Moss Park. Didn't really have any incidents to speak of other than that one guy at Dundas and Sherborne who sort of said something to me and followed me for a few feet. But then we ran into a very friendly guy also. So leave a comment down below and let me know your thoughts. Is this an area of Toronto that you avoid? Do you live in the area? Do you come to the area frequently? Have you never been? Do you never want to come here? Or would you like to check it out on your own? All comments are good, whether positive or negative. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And also make sure you hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any of my videos. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can do so via PayPal or via becoming a channel member or by sending a super thanks. And there's also a link to my merch store down in the description. And you can find me on Instagram under KContinuum. So thanks for watching, and be sure to keep checking back because, as always, I will continue.